Hi everybody, this is Mark in the shop, and we're going to go over some things for the lamp project with you, just to give you some insights on types of lamps and parts of the lamps, and make it easier for you to design these things for your project. So the first thing we're going to talk about is parts of the lamp. And if you notice, there's a diagram right there with the major parts of the lamps, but the ones you really need to concentrate on are the switch, the socket, the base, and the harp. And the harp is what holds the shade on your piece. So you really need to concentrate on that harp too, and the tube that runs through the center that runs all your electrical. And the last part would be a cord. And this is a range of bulbs that you can choose from. And I think it's real important for you to go through this and look at the bulbs and see what size, what one fits your project best. If you pick a bulb or you make a project so small and the bulb's so big, you got to start over or you got to retrofit some stuff. So make sure you check the bulb and have the bulb in mind and the socket and the hardware when you start designing. So here's some pretty traditional lamps, and we're gonna talk about different things. But right now, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the hardware of each lamp. These lamps are very traditional, and you can go out and buy a kit, and this kit is basically what you need to build that lamp with, and you can just get them in a kit. There's the socket, there's the harp, there's the cord, and you also have the tube. I call it the stem, but they call it the tube. And you can see where the socket and the tube connect, and it runs through the center of your piece. So you're going to have to figure where that's going to go in your design, or you're going to have to design something around it, or you're going to have to modify it. So here's some pretty contemporary pieces, really harder to hide the cords and things, and where you're going to put your tube. This kit's more appropriate to that, which is just a socket with an extension, the cord, and some insulators. But if you look really close at this one, you see where the switch is. So if you don't want the switch there, then you have to get a kit with a remote switch or some other type of switch, rocker switch that you put in your base, whatever. So you got to think about the switch also, where you're going to put it in your piece so you can turn the light on and off. This piece basically uses the same kind of kit. The tube's running down through the center of it, but the tube is stopped at the very top of your base, and then it's just free hanging in the middle of your piece. But you could also use a setup like this where the tube and the base and the socket's all in one piece. But now look at where the switch is. It's a chain, and so if you don't want to chain, then you have to figure out what you want to use to turn the light on and off with. Contemporary, these are very contemporary, and these are LED lights, which is kind of light source that I really think you guys should be thinking. It's a lot lighter, more compact. It doesn't heat up. It's more, you put out more energy, and you can get them running off of 12 volts, which means you can just run them off of batteries. And here's the typical ones, battery operated. That's about a 3-inch LED setup with a remote control, so you can actually, and it phases through color. So it kind of adds a little bit of dimension to your project. And it can fit in one of these bases, and you can then put your main body of your lamp on it and run it up the main body and onto the shade. Here's a unique way of using found objects is to make a lamp and incorporating the socket as part of the entire piece rather than trying to figure out where you're going to put the socket there. You just make the socket part of the piece and go that way. I'm just giving you some suggestions. Or you can use a base like this for it and then build off that. And the other type of lighting situation that you're probably going to encounter, and probably the easiest one for you to use, is the pendant type, because it becomes part of the lamp because you have to use the pendant or the cord to hang it with. so it all automatically becomes part of your design. If you can see the difference, you got a pendant sitting on the right side. You have a standard traditional one, so you got to figure out where the cord's going to go, where the stem is, and where your harp is, and where your socket is. Versus you just build around the socket and you hang it. So now we're going to talk about some style, and I think it's real important because styles are going to dictate how you construct your piece. And I think that would be very beneficial to you. So a traditional lamp like these are very basic. They're very easy to fabricate. They're very easy to make. But you notice the stems is the integral part of the design. It runs right through the center, which is what basically most you're going to have to do unless you figure out a different way to use the lighting kit. And these are just another traditional thing. They embellished the one on the left. It looks like a column, and it's more ornate, but it's still a very traditional style. And the ones on the right are a little bit more contemporary. And again, same thing. You got pretty traditional. One's a little bit more on the rustic side, and one's more on the sophisticated side. Again, same kind of thing. It's an additive type of method of construction, and most of you are probably going to have to concentrate on that way. It's going to be the easiest and best way for you to fabricate something. Subtractive gets a little difficult if you don't have the skills you need to do it or the equipment. Contemporary is a different type of thing because you're going to run into problems where it's minimalist type of design, and the cord is going to be and the socket are going to be a problem to you. Where are you going to put it? How are you going to hide it? Where it's going to go? So you really need to do a little bit more thinking about the hardware that you're going to build your lamp with. So you got two pendants here, which is a pretty simple solution. You got one that has on the right that has kites, and basically the pendant is suspends it from the ceiling, and then basically they just somehow connect all the things together. The other piece is a couple found objects put together, which is a really fun way to make a lamp also. You can ask Rachel about that. She made 2 of them last year. So here's some other contemporary pieces made probably on the one on the left made with a laser cutter. A good resource on that is Riley, because she made one from a laser cutter last year, and she's kind of part of this project this year. So basically, a good resource to talk to on that. And the one on the right is just a fabricated, stacked, laminated piece, and they're both pendants. More pendants here, but you can see how easy it is to incorporate the hardware in it and make it part of the piece rather than a secondary thought when you're building the piece. One on the right isn't really concrete, but they've made it to look like concrete. It's really impractical to hang concrete, so I'm sure it's some type of fiber board of some kind that's made to look like concrete. Then you got a very interesting Asian influence here, and it's a stacked laminate, but if you notice really inside the design of how they stacked it and moved them in and out to make a shape that's pretty interesting, and you want to, this is a really cool way of making a very simple light, but it steps it up a little bit. Then you can go back to the simple, contemporary type stuff. We're very clean metal. It's very contemporary. You got a bunch of discs stacked up. You can see how they incorporated the tube, which is where the wiring going through. And now you go to a very minimalistic looking thing with bent wood and shade. So the harp's got to be up there somewhere holding shade. You got the stem hidden on the one on the right, and then they put a stem on the one on the left. They just let the cord hang through the middle of the piece, which, in their opinion, didn't bother the look of their piece. So they basically just let it free fall down the center, and you can see that the socket, how the socket situation works on both of them. Very interesting contemporary pieces because these use LED strips. And I think that's an exciting thing for you guys to think about because you can just take them and apply them to the shape like they've done and basically lights up the whole outside of it. And I think it makes it look nice. There's the one on the bottom left uses uplighting as well as the strip. The base actually is illuminating it also. So you have lots of possibilities. And like I said before, they don't get hot. So, you know, they put out a lot of light for the size of the bulb. And the other thing is about paper. That's why I also suggest if you're going to make a shade out of paper, you probably want to do an LED because you don't want an incandescent putting out that much heat and anywhere close to the paper because it could, if not start a fire, singe it. So now we're going to go to the fun stuff, my favorite stuff, which is the rustic and found object type stuff. If you look at the picture there, it's just a pot with a couple of legs made out of wood, and they turn it into a lamp. Or you can just go out and find a really beautiful piece of wood, put a socket in it, figure out where you're going to put the cord, stick it on a base, and then you have a really nice, very interesting, elegant looking lamp. Or you can go to craziness and develop and carve a piece, but my suggestion is to try to stay away from carving. It's really time consuming and you have to have the right tools. But I wanted to show you anyway what extremes you could go to. And the other one is probably two found objects, you know, indexing box of some kind with a lead pipe or plumbing type pipe and a bulb in a socket. Then you have even more rustic ones where, you know, you take two pieces of wood or you find two pieces of branch and you put them together, figure out how to get the socket and the cord in it and put a shade on it and you have a light. Same with these two. Very simple. The one on the right is very simple. I mean, when you start looking at it and going, oh my goodness, it's just a socket, a piece of wire, and two or three pieces of wood, and I got a light. And these get more extreme, but these are very, very in right now. These are what a lot of people are doing. They're repurposing things like gears and tools and springs and finding old light shades, old industrial type light shades, and making lights out of them. You can see the one on the right where the switch is. It's in the cord. You can also see how they've incorporated the stem or the tube as part of the piece, and the socket's obvious. You see the bulb, so the socket's just part of the shade. Then you can get even crazier, like the one on the left, which is a drill with a socket as taking the place of the chuck, and then you got some gears, and you got a pressure gauge for some strange reason, but this one is actually called the ray gun, so you can take it from that. And then the one on the right is basically a couple of tins put together. Same with these, just fun things. Just let your mind go in this type of field. You can just start putting things together, and all of a sudden you end up with a pretty interesting lamp, and fairly easy and inexpensive to make. Then I'm going to go over some pendants right now because I think pendants are the easiest for you guys to deal with the hardware in the pieces. So here again, we're back to the laser cut one out of cardboard, hot glued together, but a real good insight on this. Why I would do LEDs with this one, if you use hot glue to put it together and use an incandescent bulb, it could get hot enough for the glue to get loose and the whole thing will fall apart. So if you use an LED, it doesn't get that hot and it won't do that. And here's the other one where, you know, it's just if you're familiar with old child's toy Lincoln logs, that's basically what this is. It's a bunch of Lincoln logs stacked up on top of each other. It's like a log cabin in a way, but all of a sudden it becomes very contemporary because not a cabin, it's not a building, it's a lamp. We're back to the concrete pendant ones that I talked about and the paper ones. And that's it. And I just wanted to let you know that the shop is available to you guys. We want you to come in and email us for an appointment, and it'll be on the flyer. All the information for that will be on the flyer. We'd like to see it in like 2-hour blocks. And the only thing else is we're only going to accommodate 4 people at a time in the shop, which means if you come in do a 2-hour period, there's going to be 3 other people, probably 3 other people in here, and that's it. That's our social distancing policy right now. Okay? Thanks.